Welcome to the Head Guy podcast. This podcast has been sponsored by Cards in Qatar, the number one website for all your birthday cards, greeting cards, farewell cards, your sick cards, etc., etc. And also the sponsor is Mahaba, the number one destination guide here in Qatar, to find all your facts and figures and destinations, etc., etc. Find your Mahaba book or go online. So, my special guest today is a very old friend. I've known him for many years, and he was on Your Onion podcast at the very beginning. And he was on, I think you were on the 4th floor. I was on the 1st floor. Were you on the 3rd floor or the 4th?
Yes, the 4th.
The 4th floor. So Aziz Louksah, how are you?
Hi, Stefan. Nice to meet you again. It's been a while.
It has been a while, and we've just spent half an hour reminiscing of the last 3 years of what a personal journey it was for both of us.
It's been, as I said, eventful. I couldn't describe the last 3 years, but the most eventful years of my life. And it's weird because for 2 of those 3 years I did nothing almost, but it was very eventful on an emotional, personal, deep level. We're talking about the pandemic, so just for the future generations.
Well, that's true.
If this podcast lives for the next 150 years and someone is listening, they should know that in the 2019 to 2022 almost, the world lived through a pandemic called COVID-19, for the lack of better words, and it was a showstopper by all means.
I'm curious, if it didn't happen, would you have come to the same conclusion at some point in your life? Did what happened to you and what happened to me kind of stop you in your tracks? You know, you kind of reevaluated where you were going. Do you think that reevaluation of your life would have happened later on?
Probably not, because we're...
So were you happy with the person pre-COVID?
Well, I was at the time, but looking back in retrospect, there were improvements, much needed, and sometimes a good slap is
This is it.
Yeah.
That is perfect. Yeah. No, that is 100%. I think it was a big slap, especially for myself. It was just like, who do you think you are? And the ego just got literally slapped out of me. It was just like, you don't need this.
No. And again, a lot of this will sound like a terrible cliche that you might pay $15 to read in a self-improvement book, but we lived it, and this is real. I started by telling you I learned to be grateful, and you might read about this and hear podcasts about it and go to a guru to learn it, but unless you find yourself in a position where everything that doesn't matter is stripped away, and the only thing that you can focus on is what really matters, you won't learn the gratefulness. And gratefulness is a great thing, because it's all about perspective, right? I mean, we get so caught up in the game, doing business, meeting this, doing that. Also, we're at a similar age bracket, so it's a time of our life when we're given, the maximum we can, because we feel this is the last push for us before we deserve to rest.
Absolutely,
right?
Yeah.
But all of that was insignificant at some point. Totally didn't matter. What really mattered is my family, having a roof, having food on the table, and being healthy. And on a Maslow's pyramid of human needs, we were brought back to basics, really.
Absolutely.
And it's all right. It's fine. I mean, there's nothing wrong with that.
No.
I looked around, and by the end of it, when we reached the end of that tunnel and there was light, and I was happy. I was very grateful that I made it safe, sound, and healthy, so I can continue for whatever next chapter is.
But I'm curious. Well, we haven't seen each other for a while, but I'm looking at a much more healthier person here now compared to pre-COVID. Yeah. How does life look now, and how do you do business differently now compared to pre-COVID?
Much calmer. Yeah. I learned to be more composed again whenever I'm in that fuzzy zone where things are happening so fast and you feel you're like... I had a friend who once told me a long time ago, she said, "Why do you live your life like life is a train chasing you? You should be on that train enjoying the ride. All you do is just racing the train." And it took me years to realize that this is what I was doing. And now when I feel like I'm being chased by the train that is life, I just go off the track, take a look at what's happening, and I really getting better at that. Because so many... I think we talked about this before. Meditation is something that I could never make myself to do, but I didn't need meditation. I didn't need to practice any specific sort of meditation, because when COVID hit us in March 2020, I suddenly had nothing to do in life, like, because you build that image of who you are, right? What's your purpose in life? My purpose is to wake up, go to the office, run that business, bring back something, put it on the table, and that's day in and day out. That was all gone, and suddenly I realized I had another purpose, a more profound purpose. My purpose is to be that pillar of stability for my family. Because if I started falling apart, and that's not in an egotistical way, I'm not saying it because I'm great. No, but I mean, I have my wife, I have my mother, my sister, they live here. My brother lives abroad and in a much worse situation at the time. So I had to keep it together, or else, what's your purpose? Again, I mean, you have to like take a deep look. At the time, I had to take a deep look and redefine who I am and what's my purpose in life. And now I continue to look back at that moment. It's like a reference moment in my life where I say, all right, maybe today things are not going as I want them to, but let's take a step back, watch it again, and see what we can do to improve. Because the worst part of... I hope again, that the worst part of my life is behind me now, and for everyone else, because it was really bad. I mean, for those who don't know, we're in the events business, and that was one business that suddenly didn't exist.
That was the was the main business that really got affected. But I'm just curious because, and the words that you are saying sounds like a very wise man, but how was it when COVID hit? Because like all of us, we were in the habit, as you say, getting up, getting ourselves ready, going to work, doing the work, coming home. That was a habit. That was a real ingrained habit that we were used to, and that's what we fed off. But once that stopped, how was that, withdrawal? Because literally, that's what I found hard, was that I wasn't doing the normal habit of getting up, going to work, and then coming home. It was just like, no, you haven't got any work to go to.
I did few things actually. So I went through phases. The first phase was what I would probably describe as the headless chicken phase, because that really was. I mean, absolutely no idea, because that first, the end of 2019 was a great business year for us. Started 2020 on a high note. For the first 2 months, we started hearing about COVID. I was in actually one of the largest exhibitions in Qatar, and I was very busy, and the pipeline looked amazing because we have done some good work with good clients, and we were expecting amazing things ahead. Mid of March, all of that was gone. Project after project, one after another. We were just receiving cancellation notes, and sometimes we didn't even have to receive it. It was very obvious that this is not going to happen. And there was for a minute there was the discussion of should we go take the legal route and sue this and sue that, but again, it's force majeure. I mean, there is no point, and it's I think it's not very ethical to go that as your first option. So I put some plan. I had to again, based on that habit, as you said, on that ingrained DNA of it, I said, all right, let me see what we should do. We paid off what we owe to the suppliers, a big part of it actually, and I had made an agreement with a lot of the suppliers that we will keep some as a buffer. I made sure that our staff is as secured as I am personally to my ability, let's say. And then I put some money aside for me to be at least to pay the rent and the basics for the next 6 months. But the first week, when I found myself sitting at home and like I was itching to go out, but I also didn't want to go out because I didn't want to bring something back, like a virus back, and go out to where? Because a lot of my friends kept on going to the office thinking that they can do something. And I was like,
I was that one.
Yeah. It was just going to be a trip, unnecessary trip to an empty place where you're going to be sitting alone doing exactly the same thing you do at home. So that was the first phase, which I very quickly knew I need to get out of. Next phase was, let's see what we can do. Now that we know what we can't do or what we shouldn't do, let's see what we should and can do. Now, luckily, and as you know, my wife has that side business where for a long time she was making and selling natural dog treats in Qatar. For a very long time, I was supposed to focus a bit with her, do the website, do this, do that, but never had the time because I was always running. So I said, all right, let's do this now. So we did that, and it picked up.
Was there any tension? Because I know my
Tension?
I know my experience with my wife, working with my wife and her side business, is the fact that, when I'm busy and she's really into it, there's a bit of tension because I can't give the time and energy.
Tension is a mild word. Let's put it this way. I had tension with my business partner, tension with the rest of the world. But what you have there is much more than tension. But again, on a personal level, now business, we were talking about it, but on a much more personal level, a lot of relationship didn't make it out of that pandemic. Because again, all your habits, all your support system, everything was taken away, and you were left face to face 24/7 with that person, or people if you have kids and all. I mean, with your family, and it showed who you truly are, and it required a lot of management.
Absolutely.
So luckily, we made it really. Having that common purpose as well, I think helped. Although it created a little bit more tension, but at least for a couple of hours a day, we had something we were doing together that didn't feel silly or mundane. It was purposeful. She wanted it. I wanted to help, so we were working on it, and it proved to be a life savior, that business, because it really picked up well. People were stuck with their pets at home, have nothing to do, no brunches, no new clothes, nothing to spend your money on. So they were like, for probably the first time, they had some time to spend with our website, and they realized, okay, let's read what's written there. It's good to be, to bring those healthy choices to our pets' lives. So we were doing very well, and that gave us a little bit of positive vibe, because we knew we're not going to be so stranded by the end of it. So I think I was lucky. If I were to be a little bit more, again, full of myself, I would say we were prepared and we had we got lucky.
Yeah.
We had something on the side, but did we know that this pandemic is gonna be a silver lining for that business? No, but at least that hustle paid off at some point, and now it continues to grow, and we know where we're heading with it. At least we had that time to focus on it. Another thing I did, we share we have dogs to long walks. I mean, by long, I mean really long walks. I made it a habit every day to take the dogs, because I was also enjoying minimum cars, minimum disruption, and the whole road is yours. You can walk and walk and walk. We would walk for an hour and a half every day, just me and the dogs, and it helped me to,
Well, I was just going to say, because you said you weren't into meditation. Was that your kind of meditation?
It was.
Just you and the dogs?
Yes.
Nothing not listening to anything. It was just literally.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I would listen to everything else at home, but when I go out to walk with the dogs, it was time. And I would, and that's for the first time, probably the last time on camera, I would talk to them. Yeah. It was very therapeutic, actually, those walks.
Yeah.
Because so many things you wanted to say, but you have to always be careful who you say them to. Because if you let your inner fears out, and you should, but if you let them out to someone who's sharing them and probably depending on you, you're only gonna make it worse.
No, exactly.
So you have to be very careful who you talk to. And at the time, I mean, I'm lucky. I have friends who I can always go to and talk to, and I know they're there for me. But everyone was struggling. So, it felt a bit childish to dump your worries on someone who probably have more.
Yeah.
You wanted to be a comfort agent, not a worrying agent to those people, to people who care about you. So the dogs, bless them, they had to listen and listen and listen. But it all helped. A bit of exercise, a little bit of that meditation, kind of my own recipe for it. Having found another thing to keep me busy with that business. So that was the first 6 months or so. If you remember, there was a big rise of virtual this, virtual that in the events business. So I started learning about this. Had a couple of meetings with business partners who were ahead of me in that game. Tried to learn what can we do with it here in Qatar and all. Not that it paid off, to be honest, business-wise, because also things were still very confusing to everyone. But at least, I didn't feel like I was left behind on that front.
But that's actually, I want to ask you about that, because the way we acted was we had always been reactive. All our business was through referrals, through people that found us. So when COVID hit, we weren't used to being proactive in getting out into the market, coming up with ideas and stuff. And that's what we really found hard was, we didn't know what to do. We were kind of, there's nothing coming in, and we're not used to getting into the habit of trying to find work. So how was it for you? Yes, the event business, bang. But did you try and, as you said, virtual, was that the first thing on your mind, or you just felt at the beginning that, okay, event business, end of, nothing's going to happen? Was there a period of time that, that you gave yourself, and then you thought, okay, let's look at it. If events aren't going to happen, how else can I generate income for what I know? Not the wife's business, but for your side of the business. What?
How do I put those skills to
absolutely
good use?
Yeah.
So I knew eventually the events business will, because everyone suddenly, there was this sudden gloom and doom, bunch of news coming your way every day that this is over, that is over, life as we know it is over, the new norm. On a really long historical line, what we went through wasn't unique. People went through the cholera, the Black Plague, lots of, and eventually science and humanity and life finds a way, right? So it wasn't going to last forever. One of the things that really pulled me into because I didn't always start and work in events. I gradually made it my choice to focus on events.
Yeah, because you were, wasn't it more of a creative agency that you were?
I started my career as a public relations person, so my real skill was writing and crafting those written messages and media relations. I gradually moved away from that, but also I was lucky to have always worked in a PR agency affiliated to creative agency. So as a writer, I became handy at writing some ads or branding stories and all of that. So I was exposed to bits and pieces. When I started Converse back in 2014, if you remember, the focus was I wanted to be a content marketing agency.
Absolutely, tell the story.
That was probably 6 years too early. I was selling something that the market either didn't know or didn't want.
But we had this conversation, didn't we? I remember. You were the flag bearer.
Yeah. You were, in all honesty, and I think I told you that before. When I started learning about content marketing, now we go sideways, right? That's fine.
We go.
we will be back. When I started learning about content marketing, I had a couple of sources. Joe Polizzi and the Content Marketing Institutes in the States were my go-to. I would read and listen and watch everything they do. And in my head, it made total sense because it suddenly brought, written, visual, audio, all of that content together across paid, earned, and owned channels. So it was the magic bullet of communication for me because we were always in silos. The PR department doesn't know what the creative department does. And back then, I remember watching this guy called Stefan Lindbergh-Jones, Ginger Camel, doing the first podcast in Qatar. And when I looked at it, I realized, okay, that's not what he does full-time for a living. What he does is film production and content creation. And he's actually doing this podcast to show that it was a really good piece of content marketing. So I said, heads off. It took me about 2 years to meet you after that. And then we sat and we did our podcast together. So, but I think we went through the same struggle because no one was getting it. It was a buzzword, but far away from us and way ahead of us, ahead of the market.
Yeah.
So I had to adjust. And again, that was a lesson that I needed to go through the COVID pandemic. So I realized what I did wrong because at the time, all I was doing, I was very reactive, always reactive.
Yeah.
Content marketing didn't work. What do we do? We do a bit of branding, a bit of this, a bit of whatever comes our way. As a result, we were so stretched, not focused, and never had the luxury of sitting down and thinking of where we go from there. So this back to being proactive, I always believe that the event business will come back because what it offers is a genuine human connection, and there is no replacement to that. With all due respect to the metaverse and everything, maybe in 150 years when we're all cyborgs and we're happy that way.
Yeah.
But as of now, in the universe we live in, we still walk and talk and have flesh and all of that. We need that connection.
We do, absolutely.
Exhibitions will be there for a long time, and meetings and events and the live experience is needed. So I knew it will come back. What I knew also back at that moment is my business model, and I had glimpses of that and always in the back of my head that we work in an unsustainable business model because we're always waiting for that referral or for that call to make to go through, or for that brief to come in,
exactly,
and for that pitch to win, and all. It's a never-ending cycle. And also during the pandemic, I won some business when in Qatar we had the first, let's say, opening. I won 3 projects. 2 of them were cancelled. So again going back into the same cycle, and I needed to break that. So I sat down and I said, okay, what do we need? What do we know as an event manager, let's say, or event management company? We know how to manage events. Where is the flow in that? We manage them for others. So we're always depending on that client calendar, planning, objective, all of it. We're also depending. We're also in a very competitive market place. So because there's nothing unique about how you manage an event. There's a good formula and a bad formula. If you follow the good formula, you manage a good event. What is unique is how you build that relationship with the client and how you make them come back for you. So I took these skills and I said, okay, I'm going to shift them from an event management focus, or in addition to event management, we're going to be an event organizer. And the main difference is, as an event organizer, you own your own events. So I started thinking of profiles, as they call them in the industry. What can we do? Had few ideas, ran them by people who are bigger and better than me in the industry. They put some sense into it. This is a good idea. This is a bad idea. But the time wasn't right, so I was waiting for the time. Along the road, we had to make some changes in the, let's say, the legality and the formation of the company and everything. And it just happened that a very good friend of mine, who also was in the events industry, but as an organizer, I think you know him, Malik Shishtawi. He used to be the head of marketing in DECC.
Yeah.
So obviously there was no DECC anymore. I mean, for 2 years the place was closed. So Malik also found himself in a very similar situation, and his solution is he took a leap of faith in himself, really, and it paid off, because he went and he said, okay, I'm going to be in this market till things get better, so let me see what I can do. He went and started a QFC company called Mangusteen, and we were always talking about it, part of the process, because I helped him with the formation. Some friends of mine did it before, like you and others. And then we were talking about maybe we do some business together. And when we talked about this event organizer scope, we found that we really believe in it, because he has done few events in the past that he owns, but it was on a smaller level, and we could grow them together. So I made the shift from Converse to Mangusteen, and I'm also very grateful and very lucky, I think, that I was able to make this shift peacefully and in a civilized way, because the market went through a lot of troubled relationships. And now we operate as Mangusteen, and a big part of what we do last year was all focused on World Cup and delivering projects related to sponsors and sponsors activations and all of that. So we wanted to ride that wave and make the best of it.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
But we still managed to put one new profile of an event last year as first edition. It's called Arab Sports Tech. And now this year, so to sum it all up, besides the client work we do, so besides the events we manage for clients, we are organizing 3 events, 3 forums, events, so forums as an exhibition and a conference, Confex as they call them. 2 of them are in Qatar, and 1 we're going to launch in Dubai and probably grow it there, because we feel it's the right market for it. So yeah, as a result of having that time and eventually the clear headspace to think, we are on a much clearer path now. We know where we're heading. Do we know how exactly? That's always evolving, but at least we know the where and the why. The how is easy always to figure it out, because that's where your skills, your expertise, and people who work with you come very handy. But I would say the main difference between Aziz before COVID, I'm talking about myself in third voice.
No, it's
Amazing.
great. Yeah.
Me before COVID, me after COVID is my purpose is much clearer now. I am a more composed person, and I'm very grateful.
Yeah.
Generally, every day I wake up, something stressful will happen to you. I mean, that's because also the thinking that you should not go through hardships and that life should be good to you and is very naive. We're not 5 anymore. We don't have that great father to protect us from all things. Once you're out there in life, and if you're lucky to make it as long as we have, you need to expect hardships.
Absolutely.
And when hardships happen and comes your way, you just face it. You deal with it. But you deal with it not from an anger, aspect or perspective, but from a gratefulness that you are capable. I'm very grateful that I was capable of dealing with all that, and that I'm here with you today, and still, as you said, I'm a healthier person. And that is, this is not how a healthy person should look. Meet me in 2-3 months and you'll see.
So are we on a plan? What's the secret?
I needed to lose a lot of weight. I'm on a good diet. So I fast. I learned that this is what works for me. It doesn't necessarily work for everyone else. But I'm very good at fasting. So I realized that the secret for me to lose weight is to just zip it. So I zip it 16, 18 hours a day. World Cup helped a lot. I fasted 26 hours one time because I left home. And I made it almost a rule not to eat out unless in a social context where I'm with people. But as long as I'm out of home, I try not to eat so I wouldn't have to compromise what I eat. Go back home, eat something healthy, balanced diet, nothing extreme, nothing so out of the norm, and it's working.
So it's just mainly diet. What about working out?
And that's where I said meet me in 2 to 3 months.
Right. There's a
now
change.
This is the discipline I have to put in myself.
Okay.
But,
I'm just curious. Because you said about the event operations and event management. What's the risk on running your own events compared to event management?
That's a very good question, and one that we thought of a lot. The risk is you don't succeed. But then, when you don't succeed, you have a full, let's say, ownership and responsibility. You can always sit and analyze why you didn't succeed and make plans to fix that. Whereas a lot of times in clients' work, in clients' projects, there is too much of pull and push from both sides. So sometimes things don't work as planned and you end up in a blame game. Because you said that, but you didn't do it as I said. When you put the plan and you execute it, there's no one else to blame but you. And I think that is not a bad thing, because we can always improve on it. And eventually, you have to accept that some of the things you will plan will not work out as you thought, and you need to be able to say, okay, we failed there. That's another thing, accepting that you won't always make it. I mean, the pandemic taught us all that, because the real hard time. Remember, before we went on air, I was telling you or maybe after, the first phase being the headless chicken.
Yes.
In that time, I was full of anger and rage, because why did this have to happen in my lifetime and all of that? And I need to find a solution. And it took me 2 hard weeks to realize that I cannot come up with a solution. Not that quickly anyways, not that fast. There's no magic bullet to what we were going through.
No.
And so once you accept that, you accept your limitations and that things won't work out as you planned, you start having a better perspective and a better approach. So the risk is we do. So before we launch any profile, like we have Arab FinTech Forum coming up in Doha, and Arab Sports Tech and Gaming, because we added gaming. We from the first edition we did last year, we found, and this is again where you can always improve. some of the best speakers on the panels we had during that first edition were actually not traditional or conventional sports people, but esports and gaming.
Right.
And we realized this is a big part of how this industry will evolve, because we're focused on the sports technology.
Mm-hmm.
And
But when you say sports technology, you mean technology that focuses on physical sports as well as esports?
so we just to give you an idea of the lovely panel or the diversity of panelists we had a doctor from Qatar University who's developed again, I apologize for butchering some of the scientific information, but to my understanding, what he developed is a genetic analysis kit, like ready kit that you would ship to somebody. They would do the test, take the swab, send it back to the lab, and the analysis will highlight, not tell you, because tell you is a strong word, will highlight your strengths and weaknesses as an athlete. So it's not a secret anymore that in the scientific world
Mm-hmm.
that we are who we are. And there's a great deal of improvement you can do if you do it in the right direction, if you play to your strengths. However, the notion that you can be anything you want to be, and I know this always makes me less popular than before I said it, is let's put it this way: you might be able to be anything you want, anyone you want to be, but you will not be Usain Bolt if you are not built for it. It's very difficult. It's very difficult for someone who doesn't play to their strength. There is a reason why certain people excel and they break a world record and it stays there for 20 years. It's not just dedication, it's not just hard training, because everyone on that track on that day probably put as many hours and as much dedication, and they made it their life purpose. But
So what are you saying? That it's in our genes?
There are always differences that will make you a better runner, a better sprinter, a better wrestler, a better shooter. I mean, Mr. Al-Atiyah, he is dominating the rally scene for years now. There must be something in
there
this
must be
person.
something. There must be something
A gift.
in his.
I mean,
absolutely.
we used to call it, this person is gifted, and now science tells us the gift is gene. So we had that panelist on one of them, but we also had other people who are. We had the I think deputy chairman of the Qatari Esports Federation. Like, we didn't know there was a Qatari Esports. It was newly launched at the time. And what did we have? We had also people in the technology of broadcast. So have you did you know that sometimes when you watch a match and you see all these ads on the side panel on the pitch, what you're seeing is just for you in your region, in your country?
Yes.
Yeah. So
yes.
that's a technology that goes into sports technology. We had a speaker from La Liga Tech. They have a huge investment and a huge research and development into the areas of fans' engagement and fans' experience and how technology can help it. And everything goes under this, like the app that you download, the social media, the experience in the field, the experience of the field, the communication. It's a fascinating world, and it's a very large industry. Apparel, sportswear, that's technology.
Well, it is now, isn't it?
Yes.
It's getting more and more
Yes.
and more and more.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, from simply making lighter, more breathable fabric to actually making fabric that reads your biometrics and reports it.
Yeah.
There were a lot of firsts in the Qatar 2020 World Cup that we've heard of. So apparently every player on the pitch was being monitored by a device to read that. And this goes into two things. First of all, making sure your athletes are healthy and ensuring their well-being, but also improving their performance.
Absolutely.
Because how many times have we seen top athletes in their prime collapsing? Just out of nowhere, they just drop down with a heart stroke or something. Now, technology will help to ensure that this doesn't happen again.
So thing that comes to me or comes to my mind while you were talking is, did you learn a lot about the first event that you held and how you can improve? So because it's yours, you literally can grow it any way you want. You can literally design it in a different way. You can extend it over more days if you felt that it was too crammed. You can put it in different segments of the different technologies, etc., etc.
Because we have as a company one purpose: to make it a successful event. We don't have a second agenda of any sort. We don't have we at this stage, at least, we don't have a lot of external stakeholders that we need to align with, communicate, and so.
But don't you have sponsors? Isn't that the whole thing about, that's where your revenue comes, is the sponsors? Don't they get involved in what is said, what is done? No, they don't. You literally offer them a package, and
let's say the editorial control of the content that we present in these forums is completely up to us. The sponsors, they get to say what they want to say, and that's absolutely fine. But no, and we choose that content based on. So first time we chose it based on what we thought is going to make a good balance of content for a one-day event. This year, we actually have some data. We could see the engagement from the audience to certain panels, so we're going to increase there and all that.
Another question that comes to mind, because I've lived here for 16 years, is how easy is it to put on an event, and how, do you have to jump through a lot of hoops to organize an event, or is that getting easier as ministries are taking on technology and getting approval, etc., etc., and advertising the event? Because I still hear that there's always an issue about people hearing that these events are actually taking place, and we don't hear it until after the event.
Yeah, true. That is all true. As always, I'm gonna give you the real deal, the honest answer.
Well, I would,
because
I would pull you up if I didn't feel you were giving me the real answer.
The regulatory framework is getting better for sure. There are improvements, and everyone is working towards it. However, we're facing a small issue right now. As told you, we're a QFC regulated company. So, for those who don't know, that QFC is Qatar Financial Center, and this means we are, in the loosest term or the most lame term, a free zone company. Now, to be an event organizer and to issue a license for an event, you need to have a special license from QT, Qatar Tourism. So if you are a mainland company, a mainland event company, or regulated or licensed by the Ministry of Commerce and Industry, you go and apply to QT, you show them some documents, they approve it, you pay some fees, and now you are a licensed event organizer. Because before that, you are a licensed event manager. So you need kind of two licenses. However, when we tried to apply as a QFC company, we ran into some issues.
The system went,
Exactly. So that's the negative side of the story, that we ran into an issue. However, on the positive side, we now have both QT and QFC working together, supporting us to solve that and come to a solution. So things are getting better, and in full honesty, and to be fair, we've all seen the growth that Qatar went through, and we are lucky to be part of that. When you grow so fast, so much, things will need to always be fine-tuned.
Absolutely.
The good thing is, speaking for example for QFC, they are very attentive, very responsive. We get a response within the same business day. If we send it a bit late, we get a response the next day. So nothing much to complain about, except that sometimes you have to try something, and maybe you're the first or the second to try it, so you run into an issue you solve it.
This is what we were. Yeah. We were always the first, so every time that we had an issue with another ministry, etc., we'd just go to QFC and they go, leave it with us.
Yes.
we're
So
going to talk
you've
to
had the same
Absolutely.
experience, yeah.
always.
And I'm positive that we will solve it. Now, on the issue of that's just for licensing and regulatory framework. On the issue of why people don't hear about things when they should and how they should, I think it's two things. Planning, mainly planning. The life cycle of an event should be almost full year. So you finish this year's edition.
And then you start.
Probably take 2 weeks to finish your reporting and wrapping it up. A week of break for the events team, and then you need to start again. In a lot of the events that happen in Qatar, because they are owned by, let's say, a government entity or a ministry, and then managed by a supplier, there is a tendering process that happens every year. So that takes a long time, and by the time the new supplier, or even if it's the old supplier, is appointed, there isn't enough time to run everything. And we also have a seasonal issue. Everything is jammed into 2 seasons when the weather is good. We still avoid the summer months here in Qatar because people travel and all that. Although it's changing, it's not as severe as it used to be. The exodus is not as big as it once was. I mean, you just have to drive around in the summer and see how busy it is.
Yeah.
These are things that we're aware of, and we are working to avoid in our event. So we already have a license for one of the events. We're finalizing the license for the second one, and we have a good communication, let's say, calendar and plan to when we're going to launch and all, just to make sure that people are aware and the event is successful. But yes, it is a general complaint and a rightful one in the market that sometimes great things happen, you only hear about them afterwards.
Absolutely.
Which brings us back to reading Marhaba. It's a good source of how is that? Now, I think you also, and that shouldn't be the, let's say, the consumer or the end user problem, but in Qatar, if you know where to look, you will be a little bit more informed than the
Absolutely.
average.
Absolutely.
Yeah, that's a thing.
How, looking forward into the future, how is the rise of Saudi and their development and their activity going to affect business here for you, or are you looking to expand into the Saudi market?
An excellent question, and
it's on everyone's mind.
Yes,
and that's why I had to ask.
Yeah. So we've taken some steps last year to. So I told you we organized the first edition of Arab FinTech Forum in 2021, and we wanted to do the second edition in Saudi. So it's not unusual to.
Is that why you called it Arab FinTech? So it was not just in one place.
Yeah, the name is to refer to the geographical focus of the content and speakers.
Yeah.
Right. We try to highlight what's happening in the region, and we could have gone for something like MENA or Middle East and all of that, but we just think that's gonna open it too much for the scale that we want to organize. So we try to focus on, let's say, the Arab-speaking region, although it's not limited to Arabic language. That's not the limitation, but. If there's a startup in Morocco doing something in fintech that is awesome, we'd love to have them to showcase what they're doing.
But is the speaking in Arabic or English? What's
up to the speaker? And
really?
Can always have
and then you have translations. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. So we thought of doing it in Saudi because some of the sponsors and speakers who participated in the first edition in Qatar came from Saudi, and they said, would love you to do it there. We ran into issues with licensing because we didn't have a legal entity there, and we tried to do it through a business partner and all of it. So we learned, and we adjusted, and we're focused on Qatar and, as I said, Dubai for one profile, which is the Arab Content Forum. which focuses on content creators and content creation, much like what you do. And we believe Dubai is the right place for it for a number of reasons, but it's at the moment one of the most matured markets in that, let's say, field. However, Saudi continues to offer opportunities for us companies here in Qatar. And from what, at least in the events industry, I can talk about what we do. What we noticed is there is a high appetite, very good spend. It's a large market, one of the largest in the region, and a thirsty market that wants to do a lot. But although you see some very good photos and videos and the outcome is good, we did an analysis. So we met people who work there on the ground, clients and organizers, or let's say technical companies and all, and we've identified, let's say, an opportunity which is normal in any emerging market. Saudi is not an emerging market, but in the events business it is. Lack of expertise. It's very clear there. So many things that can be avoided happen because, new. Everyone is new. There are very good companies there working, but there is also a lot of up and coming, very enthusiastic, very energetic, but they lack the expertise. So this is where, being in Qatar for the 18 years we've worked here, and Qatar being one of the regional events hubs, all that expertise now give us an edge in Saudi. So I would actually recommend anyone in our industry, and everyone in our industry that I know is already heading there, exploring opportunities. But what I would say, my advice is focus on excellence in your service, because that's what will differentiate you. There is no lack of creativity or design or production value. Where the opportunity or to excel is, we believe, is in the service. How you're organized and how you manage the events and the relationship with the client well. Because in every event, no matter how well the plan is, there will be a moment, like a time, can be a day or 3 days, depending on the level of the event, that everything needs to happen. It comes together.
Yeah.
Like you're doing what you're doing, I'm doing what I'm doing, and then suddenly at one time we all have to do it together. If that moment is not well managed, nothing works as it should.
Yeah.
So the light won't be on the right time, the sound won't work, the gate won't open, the singer won't be on stage. A lot of things can happen.
Yeah.
So there is that opportunity for companies in Qatar to use all of the expertise we had here and go. And usually this is not common, because when you operate in two markets with a much difference in let's say geographical size, or you come as the underdog. But luckily for us, we have the time and the expertise advantage.
Yeah.
So take that, apply it there, and if you operate in these two markets, you might also be able to optimize on costs and a lot of things because the proximity. So if you have a good supplier, if you're an event management company, you have a good technical supplier here, take them with you to Saudi.
Well, that was going to be my next question. Do you see
leverage.
You would take the whole lock, stock and barrel of your suppliers and everyone and run an event in Saudi because of the lack of expertise over there?
For the first time, probably that's your safest option.
Yeah.
And then gradually get to meet the suppliers there.
Train them up.
Work.
Yeah.
Train them is going to sound very condescending, but work with them to have let's say an understanding on the standards you want.
Yeah.
That's all I would say. But yeah, the opportunity that Saudi poses for us is huge, and is one that we're actively pursuing.
Super.
So soon enough we will have hopefully a license in Saudi as well.
Very good. Well, thank you, Aziz.
Thank you, Stefan.
We've come to nearly an hour, so
that's a lot in your standards today.
No, normally I try to keep it down to half an hour, but now I've, since COVID, it's just like, no, just go.
Yeah,
Go with the wind.
I just hope we didn't bore everyone.
Well, let's hope not. No, I think there's some good content there.
Great.
Yeah,
Looking
so I wish you all
forward
the
to our
best.
Next.
Absolutely. Well, let's not keep it so long
Agreed.
from the last time, because it was about 8 years.
Yeah. Well, 3 of them don't count.
No, that's true.
Just to.
That's true. Oh, it would have been an interesting podcast if we did it during COVID. Anyway, thank you. Thank you, sir. And I wish you all the best. And please keep in touch. And if there's any events that you want to share with us, etc., come on and talk about it.
We will.
Yeah, superb. Thank you, guys. Thank you for watching. Catch up with you next week. Just to do another big shout out to our sponsors. It is Cards in Qatar, the #1 website for all your birthday cards, greeting cards, farewell cards, are you sick cards, get well cards, etc. And Mahaba, the #1 destination guidebook for Qatar. Pick up their book anywhere or go to their website. Have a great week. See you next week. Bye-bye.